Why are some people more likely to see positive outcomes in a certain picture versus some people who see negative outcomes? Are there links between this type of behaviour and people who suffer from obesity, anxiety, and depression? What about your political beliefs? How likely are they to bias your decision making? Everyone is affected by attentional bias. This cognitive bias is linked to influencing how we make decisions and some addictive behaviours. Does some recent research suggest that attentional bias modification is possible to remove these behaviours? Hi guys, it's Peter again. Thanks for dropping by the channel. 5-minute brain hacks. Remember, the goal is the smarter you in just 5 minutes. If you're curious about how your brain works, how to make better decisions, and how to lead a more informed life, then you'll want to subscribe to this channel. If you're curious about this video and have a question, or have something to say about the topic, you're very welcome to leave a comment below. I look forward to hearing about your views on attentional bias and how it's impacted your life. So what is attentional bias? The simple definition of attentional bias is that your brain has a tendency to pay attention to some things whilst ignoring others. How we're feeling emotionally at any one time can influence where we place our attention. The more emotion we feel when subjected to a particular stimulus, good or bad, the more likely we are to focus on that stimulus over everything else. This has the effect of impacting not only the things that we perceive as we go about our everyday life, but also the decisions we make based on what we're perceiving. There is a clear distinction being made about what we actually see in any given situation and how our brains perceive and interpret that. Attentional bias impacts both in the immediate moment and your memory. You might remember something in a biased way if your reaction to a stimulus was strong, so your memory will be influenced by the emotion you felt. Let's look at a scientific experiment to show this bias at work. The STROOP Test was introduced in 1935 by John Ridley Stroop. Imagine you have an anxiety of dogs. If I showed you words associated with dogs, written in different colours, you would take longer to say the colour of the word, as these words would represent something threatening versus neutral words. Example might be kennel, shop, bite, field, heel, camera. The STROOP test was modified and updated in the 1980s for emotional STROOP task. In this version, instead of reading colour names, participants were told to say aloud the colour in which each word was written. Additionally, all the words were grouped according to their emotional value. Example 3, neutral, holiday, positive, hatred, negative. Slower reaction times were interpreted to mean that deeper processing of a given word was taking place, suggesting a possible attentional bias. Numerous variations of the ES task were conducted in this period, testing patients in a wide range of groups. It was these studies that first established certain attentional biases that are now well known. For example, Gottlieb and McCann in 1984 found that depressed participants were slower to name the colours of negative words. Matthews and McLeod, 1985, showed that anxious patients were slower for threatening words, particularly words that were related to an individual's particular fears. And Watts et al. In 1986 showed that arachnophobes were delayed when reading spider-related words. Let's look at another example. Suppose you want to revamp your diet. You decide to reduce the amount of sugar you eat. To work towards this goal, you resolve to buy fewer chocolate bars when you go grocery shopping. All goes well initially, but 2 weeks into your new regime, you have a particularly busy work schedule and you end up doing your grocery shopping at the end of a very busy workday, before you've had a chance to eat dinner. You try your very best to take your mind off the junk food aisle, but you can't seem to stop thinking about your favourite chocolate snacks. Eventually you cave and throw a small packet of chocolate chip cookies into your basket, which you open soon after leaving the store. In this example, the state of being hungry has biased your attention towards foods that can quickly satisfy your energy needs, like sugar, a simple carbohydrate, and made it much more difficult for you to follow through on your plan. In one study, researchers compared the attentional bias in experienced meditators versus non-meditators. The participants were shown images of both neutral and emotional faces, and their eye movements were tracked. The results showed that meditators spent significantly less time looking at angry and fearful faces. What's more, while non-meditators showed attentional bias for both angry and happy faces, meditators only showed this effect for happy faces. This experiment suggests that, over time, getting into the habit of mindfulness meditation can minimize certain types of attentional bias. This experiment suggests that, over time, getting into the habit of mindfulness meditation can help minimize certain types of attentional bias. You don't have to be a lifelong meditator to gain these benefits. Research has shown that even a small amount of time meditating can have beneficial effects on your attentional bias. So what did we learn today? Our attention is a finite resource. Focusing on one thing comes at the expense of others. Faced with a massive amount of incoming information every second, our brains are constantly trying to figure out what is more worthy of our concentration. Some stimuli that tend to bias our attention, such as hunger and anxiety, likely have evolutionary roots. Other times our attention can be biased by cognitive schemas that we have acquired over the course of our lives. That's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked learning more about how your brain works and how you can use this knowledge to live a smarter life, then feel free to subscribe to 5-Minute Brain Hacks. I look forward to hearing from you about your views on attentional bias and how it's impacted your life.